everybody. Welcome back to Fusion Body Studio. Today Brice and I have a very special guest today. We have my personal trainer, which is Jason Lim. He's joining us from Movement Hub, which is very exciting. How are you today, Jason?
And thanks, Paula. How are you guys?
Very good, thank you. And Brice, how are you going? We're all feeling a little bit emotional today. It's been a bit of a unsettling news we've received. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know when we're going to drop this on the channel, but we have to address because we're filming this today, Thursday, September the 11th. For me, it's 5 o'clock in the morning on the East Coast, and we have to send all of our love. I think we're both all three of us are extremely shooketh from the assassination that happened yesterday here in the United States of Charlie Kirk. And I do have to shout out to Australia because Paula, you sent me some of the news clips in Australia, and I don't want to get emotional because I just put my makeup on.
I know,
But
same.
even when something, it was Mr. Rogers who said, his mother said, whenever bad things happen in the world, look for the helpers because there will always be helpers. And a shout out to Sky News for being human beings and for you sent me the clip of the anchor on Sky News, the female who got emotional.
Mhm.
This was a human being. And regardless of whether you agree with his opinions or not, he was a father, he was a husband, he was not hurting anyone. He was just having civil debate with people over topics. And to assassinate someone because you don't like what they're saying is not okay. And the United States, especially, was founded on this principle of freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of people talking and being able to criticize beliefs openly in order to come to a better tomorrow. And so my heart, I am still in shock. I think we were talking about it offhand. The video, if don't watch the video, if it's still up, it will. I've seen many people say change their brain chemistry. That should not be up. And murder is never right. It's never okay. And I hope justice is served. And rest in peace, Charlie Kirk, and all of our love. I don't know you, I don't know your family, but all of my love, our love to Erica Kirk and to these tiny, what, a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old,
Yeah, the little
tiny children who
babies.
just lost their father. Um, all of our love to them. And so be
Yeah,
kind, be kind humans, just be kind to people. Like,
yeah.
it's not
It's
that hard.
so
Um,
heartbreaking, really. And it's quite shocking, and it's shocking even for us in Australia because it's just hit differently. Like you were saying, he wasn't even a politician or anything, and just to have this happen just because he was trying to share his opinion in a very respectful way is just it's so sad. And now his kids are going to grow up without him. So yeah, we're just very, very sad to hear that over here. It's yeah, it's been really, really sad. But yeah.
yes. To honor Charlie Kirk, let's live a better life. And and with that being said, I think that's a great introduction into this. I'm excited about talking to you,
Yeah, we
Jason,
are. We're
because
sorry, Jason,
Yeah,
to
no,
have
oh
you
look,
on as
hey,
our special
we've
guest.
gotta, yeah, you gotta address it. You have to address it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has to be said. We just need to be better people.
Yeah.
no,
And
be
and
better
and he
people.
was definitely an inspiration. So we can use that to be inspired. And so Jason, I've been working with you. I think I got an email today to say it's been 2 months now or six
Yeah, it's
weeks.
been about 2 months. I think we've done, yeah, at least 6 or 7 sessions over the last 2 months. Yeah. You
Yes.
were a little sick, which was
Yeah, which was a little
um,
bit of a setback.
that back. But hey, that's life, and I think that's one thing that we can off the bat just say that's what's going to happen when you start training, and it's one
Mhm.
of those hurdles that we just have to accept and not let it derail us.
Yeah, but just in this short time that I've known you, I felt quite inspired by you, and just from obviously most of the
Thank
time we don't really get time to chat very much because we're doing the session and it's quite quick. But just from little things that you've said, straight away I was just like, wow, you really resonate with me and with what Brice teaches as a teacher, as a trainer, fitness trainer. And yeah, and so that's why we really wanted to get you on today, because we just feel like you really resonate with us. You have a lot of the same philosophy and beliefs. And we really just want to share as much knowledge as we can with our audience, because we really want people to understand why it's so important to exercise, why it is basically just so important for our health and longevity so that we can live a long, healthy life. Because I feel like in society, and I know Brice agrees, and I'm sure you will too, Jason, that we have just been really programmed over the years, especially, 80s, 90s, that it's all about exercise is all about looking good and getting a bikini body, and that's why we should be doing it. And we should, if you eat badly, go to the gym and punish yourself, and it's just so wrong. Like, that's not what it's about at all. It's really about our health, and so that we can live a long, healthy life and be able to move, to be mobile as we get older, and to be able to just do everyday things. So that's why we really wanted to bring you on and have a chat to you. And basically, I would really like to just start with how did you get started into becoming a personal trainer? What inspired you, and what's your journey been like to get to where you are today?
Oh man, like this is always the awkward bit. I hate talking about myself. And I'm going to try to keep this as short because it makes me feel awkward. But if you want more information, please ask.
Sure.
I've come from a large background of sport. I can't remember when I didn't play a sport or do something. It started with football or soccer, sorry. It's moved on to rugby, touch rugby, skateboarding, just CrossFit in the gym, anything that involves pushing myself to my limits, I've always been a part of. With anything that comes with these kind of sports, or any sport or any training, there's inherent risk of injury, and I've had my fair share. And I think part of that, having gone through the rehab process with so many different professionals, it kind of really resonated with me that, hey, like, this is a job, this is a cool thing. I can help people come back from, when you're hurt, you're not, I wouldn't say you're at your lowest, but you hit some pretty damn like incredible lows. And to have someone there support you, bring you back up, that was a pretty cool thing to have and experience. And that kind of led me into picking a field, which was sports science and exercise physiology. And then a short time in that field, I realized it wasn't exactly what I thought it was, how most exercise physiologists, the world that they live in, or the world that we work in, is predominantly more business minded and less people minded. So I left that arena and opened up a gym with another ex-phys friend of mine. And since then, it's led to multiple businesses and trying to help those that do need the help, do want the help, whilst at the same time treating exercise and what we do as more of a preventative style medicine.
Yeah. I want to ask about the injury thing. I thought that was fascinating you brought that up because you're right. There's always going to, in Ashtanga yoga, we say you have three teachers: the practice, the teacher, and the injury. The injury, that's just going to happen. You have a body, you're going to do something at some point that's minor or major. But one of my teachers used to say, David Grieg used to say, the beautiful thing about injury is that it brings us to a place of complete honesty. Complete honesty. You can't lie. Your ego can't override you when your body is injured. And that is a beautiful place to be, and it's asking to redirect that energy. So I'm glad that you brought that up because I don't want people to be discouraged when and if that happens, that there's always modifications, there's always things to do, but to honor that in the body when that happens. And that's a place of honesty. And so I'm glad you brought that up, that's just part of being in this human body, right? Is that it's always changing and it's
Well, I
fallible.
think not just the body, but in life, right? Where there is no risk, there is no reward.
Yeah.
So it's kind of one of those ones, like, obviously you can mitigate risk, you can change the level of reward you're looking for, but to come into it thinking that you can come out completely unscathed, and sometimes there's an opportunity. I've always said to people, like dependent on injury, of course, but for the most part, every injury that, say, most of my clients have had has been I won't say a full blessing, but a little blessing in disguise, where we've been able to work on other things that they didn't know they needed, or that they could just, really hone in on, and is made them a more complete individual. And then once we were able to get back to everything else, we're like, well, cool, we can kind of hyper fixate, focus on this other stuff now because this stuff is good.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's a redirection of energy.
Yeah.
You're just redirecting your energy. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. No, that's great. So you got into the personal training, and from there, so you've got your own gym now, which is what yeah, and you're helping
Yes.
train
Yeah.
people. Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'll give you a bit more of a rundown. So
Mm-hmm.
workers' compensation and vocational rehab here in Australia, like I said, it's very insurance based. It is a gym based and very interpersonal business where you're working with an individual who's been hurt at work. Um, but there's a lot of bureaucratic red tape. There's a lot of, I don't want to disparage the job because some people love it, but it just wasn't for me. And I found that working with companies that sometimes felt more like they were trying to protect the bottom line than they were about trying to help the person wasn't where I wanted to be. And I had a friend of mine, close friend of mine, Dylan, who runs his own gym now, like our first gym, go through a similar experience. And we figured we can still have a positive effect working with these same people, just without the middleman involved, whilst also doing things we enjoy, which is the general public. So we figured, let's do it all. Let's try to start something that we could do all together. And that was about, I want to say 13 years ago, 12, 13 years ago, and we started our first business. And
Okay.
since then, we opened up a second one, Movement Hub, which you now know. And then recently, I just acquired a third business. Well, sorry, I sold the first one, but acquired a third business about a year and a half ago. And again, all with the mantra of I just want to help people live long, happy, healthy lives for as long as I can.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say, in your experience, because being in that place of serving others, really wanting to help people, which is so amazing. That's a service to others. In the law of one, that's a positive polarity to really want to help use your craft to help people. We consider this part of the healing arts. At what point in your own personal development within your own body did you realize that this was something I really feel a calling to do? Was there like a miraculous moment where, like, we call it in Sanskrit prativa, which means a flash of illumination, where all of a sudden you realize like there's power here and I want to give this to, I don't want to hoard this for myself. I want to give this to other people. Was there something that happened, or was it a slow evolution where it kind of dawned on you that you wanted to share this with the world?
I think it was a slow evolution. There was no major catalyst. I mean, being in the arena was, like I said, a lifetime of injury that kind of pushed me into a certain direction. But as far as look, I mean, honestly, I'll be honest. Like when we first started that business, the attitude I took towards people and training and health was a lot harsher than it is now. And it wasn't from a malicious point, but I had a
Mhm.
lot. I was immature, right? I was young. I was immature. It was a lot more um, hard line. I was obstinate in my views. And I think a lot of that also stems from my understanding of well, if you don't want to do this, why are you even here type stuff. And realizing that there is a massive spectrum of individuals, there's a massive spectrum of needs. Um, and that's okay. And that's the fine. And I was like, okay, well, either I need to get on board with helping people fix their problems to the extent of which they want to be fixed. And I can also choose to only work with a certain amount of people that have a certain standard that I have. But and I would honestly say it's probably only been in the last 5 years that I come to that realization where um, there's so many different ways to approach health and fitness.
Mhm.
And from a coach's perspective, from an individual's perspective, it's about finding what's right for you and not letting anyone tell you that that's wrong. That being said, like I said, risk reward. Um, there can always be what's best, but if that's not realistic, if that's not what you want, then we also have to accept that. So yeah, long or the short, I just say evolution. Like it's been, what has it been? It's been because I would have started coaching whilst I was in uni. So that would have been 20 years now. So,
Wow.
and 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 I can honestly look back on all my programming and all the stuff that I've done. And yes, I draw back on some of the old school, but it has progressed. There might be similarities, and obviously principles of training don't change, but it has constantly evolved over the last 20 years. And I hope generally in the right direction with growth.
I think that is very normal too, because as you're saying that, like I'm laughing because I see that within myself as well. The form of yoga that I practice is so intense, and we get up at super like in India, we're up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and we follow very strict diets because that does affect your body and your performance, if you will. And it's funny because I've seen young teachers who are just authorized be like super dogmatic about your last meal needs to be at 4 p.m. You need to, but for me, the more I've taught, it's one thing to be like 20 years old and have no responsibilities and be able to stop eating at 4 p.m. and have a proficient practice the next day. But the people that impress me the most are like the single moms who have to stay up late and help their kids with homework. And maybe they're only able to come in like 4 days a week, and maybe they only have like 45 minutes. But the fact that they're making that time it's easy to make that time to be intense when you have no other responsibilities.
Mhm.
But when you are a parent, when you have and you're still making at least 45 minutes to work, to me, that's where I started to like realize, like you're saying, there's so many different paths to get to the same result. And it's still hard, but yeah, there has to be some give and take with the pendulum. But that is common, right? The pendulum, usually when people first start something, they're super dogmatic and they're super, but then that pendulum kind of really, like when people first go vegetarian, they're like they go super vegan and they don't, and it's like, yeah, maybe eat some cheese. Like it kind of releases a little bit. You can have a beer every once in a while. It's fine. Like you still have to live your life. You still have to have, that health and that mental space with your clients and with yourself too.
Mhm.
And and
Yeah.
that brings me to a kind of a question too. I wanted to talk because when you started Paula about the 80s and the 90s, and I'm always laugh that I was born in 1983, so I was born right into like the jazzercise, the low fat. I remember some of my earliest memories are sitting in the back of a jazzercise room coloring with those 80s leotards, the thongs, like seeing them in the bright colors, and my mother like working out like crazy and trying to look good and going to Weight Watchers meetings and all that kind of stuff. And so for our generation, a lot of us were put on this earth with this mentality. And it takes a lot to like change that pattern of thinking sometimes. And so do exercise is so good for you, but there's something else. Have you ever noticed, Jason, like what they call exercise bulimia, where have you ever had a client where you feel like how do you handle that, that they might be exercising too much from like an unhealthy perspective?
All the time. From all different spectrums of why, right? So having working with a lot of athletes, there's those that are chasing that aesthetic, right? Like there are those that are, like you said, dogmatic. They're chasing something so hard that they're doing more damage. And from
Yeah.
the athletic point of view, overtraining is a big thing. Talks about, they want to win, and so they think more is always better. And that mentality can be applied to almost anything. But from people trying to lose weight, from people trying even just trying to be healthier, it's an obsession. It's an addiction. I mean, it's probably a healthier addiction than most. But
Hmm.
like anything, too much of something can be bad for you. And I hate saying this because it's a little bit cliche, but it always stands true no matter which way you want to look at it. It's like it's balance. Um,
Hmm.
and that to each individual, we have to apply, I think, two different rules. And I think we talked about this a while ago, which was um, what is the minimum and maximum effective dose for the individual?
Yeah.
All right, because we understand that you have to do something to create a stimulus, to create an adaptation. So talking about this exercise bulimia, for the individuals that are trying to be healthy and just healthy, I think what's your minimum effective dose? Like the single mom like Paula, our sessions are derived around my head. I'm like, I've got limited time with you. What is the minimum effective dose that I'm going to get the maximum positive outcome for you?
Mhm.
Whereas with an athlete, I might might toy with what's my maximum effective dose before I break you.
Right.
And that again, that assumes that they've got all the time in the world to train, and it comes down to a lot of factors. But I think we need to get out of the concept of more is always better. There's, like we said, the pendulum, or whatever you want to call it, a spectrum, a sliding scale. There's that sweet spot that we need to live within, and too little, too much, just as bad as each other. Overeating, undereating, just as bad as each other. So when we can get into that mentality of get that sweet spot, and for most people, it should be minimum effective dose, right? Unless you're trying to be a high level athlete or you've got some sort of lofty physical goal, you should always be thinking minimum effective dose.
I want to pause because this is so important. And I love how you're saying it, Jason. This is why I love this because I think we're saying the same things, but in different languages because we're coming
Yep.
from two different lineages. And I always say every tree in the forest is different, but it's all reaching for the same light.
Yeah.
I always tell people, and we've seen this on Fusion Body Studio a lot, and we had it on, I loved how you said, if I was your client, you would be harder on me because this is what I do. Like I'm used to this. My body can probably take a little bit more.
Mhm.
I tell our students all the time, never compare your chapter 1 to somebody else's chapter 10. I've been doing this for 19 years. My workout is like 2 hours a day, but my body can handle it. I didn't start 2 hours a day. I didn't start there, right? I got there, and my job also, like you, Jason, in order to do our jobs, we have to be strong too because we're supporting somebody else. And so it's a different demand on our bodies. And can we I think sometimes like people will see us and compare themselves to us, forgetting that there's all these years that they didn't see
Mhm.
that has led us to where we are now to be able to help, to be in a position of helping. Do you have clients that maybe compare their chapter 1 to your chapter 10 that want to be where you are overnight?
all
And
all the time, all the time, and not just me, to other members. I think this is a funny one. This is a double-edged sword. Like I pride myself on a high retention rate. Okay, so if I get a member, if I get them past a certain point, I know I've got them for a long amount of time.
Mhm.
Um, Wonderful thing, right? That's a metric you would love. Any gym owner would love. What it does though, and what the interesting thing with that is, because we do sometimes limit intake, is when a
Mhm.
new member comes in, they don't always have someone else to share this new member journey with. And it can be very intimidating to come into, imagine being a beginner coming into a pro yoga class. I don't, pro might be
Yeah.
the wrong word, experienced, right?
Mhm.
Advanced. You might be thinking, I'm so out of depth. And this is where, as the coach, as the gym owner, and this is something I've again had to really grow and understand and learn to adapt to is educate. Be
Hmm.
like, as much as it's hard to see me in that light or some of these people in that light, please remember we all started there.
Hmm.
Um, I like to get them to talk to some of our newer members to go, no, trust me, like honestly, I've been here a year or two. This is where I started, and it does
Hmm.
get, don't want to lie, it doesn't get easier. You do get better.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and it's that every time. And yeah, every gym you go to, everything. And this is also one of those ones. I think this is where a lot of the internal monologue of the individual will kick in. And I think this is also where the fallacy, where when people look at people who train, they go, I must get fit to start something.
Yeah.
And I find that such a hilarious way to think. And Paula had me say this to her.
Yeah, I'm
And,
laughing because this was my mentality.
right? And then I say to you, and this doesn't mean this doesn't pertain to having to go to the gym. It just pertains to asking for help. But you don't fix your car before you take it to the mechanic,
Mhm.
Right.
right? Like you just don't. Like
Mhm.
that's why you go to someone with more experience that can help you with. Again, it doesn't have to be a specific gym owner or a PT, because you might have a friend that's been training for a long amount of time that might say, "Hey, I can guide you along with this. I don't need you to get to a certain level. That's why I'm here." So
Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
it's that kind of, like, just remembering that, hey, everyone has to start, like you had to learn to read at some point. And also ego has to be put aside.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
you can't
definitely.
come in expect to be good at something. Like um the journey from beginner to expert, right, is wrought with years, or if not years, not even just repetitions, iterations, right?
Yeah.
Finding the right way to do something and then doing it over and over again, which Paula, you've experienced over the last 6 weeks. We only are now beginning to think about repetition.
Yes.
Mhm.
Right? We discussed the first 4 weeks are going to be the hardest because we need to find iterations. And that was my job. What would resonate with you to help your body to understand what it needed to do?
Mhm.
And now it's beginning to understand what it needs to do. Now we can work on repetition of that understanding and then start layering on top of that complexity and loading.
Yeah,
I
and just
love,
for the
yeah.
audience to know, like I am a complete beginner when it comes to weight training. I've never done weight training before. And so it was a friend of mine that recommended Jason to me, and she's been training with him for about a year and a half, and she's got nothing but positive things to say about him. So and she's been encouraging me to go for a while, and I did have that silly thought process of like, oh well, I just want to do a few more of Brice's classes first. I just want to get a bit more fit before I go. And really, when you think about it logically, that's actually so silly because as a personal trainer, Jason's helping me, and it probably is better for me to start. So that's actually a good question for you. As a trainer, do you actually prefer it to have people that are kind of more like a blank canvas if they've not really done it before, or not? Or do you prefer somebody who's had a little bit of experience?
I'm going to give you two answers. Like, I
Yep.
love that question. It's multifaceted. With the nature of my business, I'm sure you know, like, I personal train, but we're a very heavy group fitness class.
Yes.
Both have pros and cons. Now, in our situation where I'm handling you one on one entirely, I love a blank canvas.
Hmm.
You have no bad habits. Any bad habits that kick in are going to be my fault, and I'll have to own that. So, on that note, I say, from a personal training perspective, because I love my job and I think part of the fun is teaching someone, I
Hmm.
would love a blank canvas. So, there's benefit in having someone come in with experience because maybe we just get to push things a little faster and that's all that changes. From my group fitness side, the onboarding process becomes a lot easier for me. So let's talk from an administration side because it is part of the world that I'm in. It's the coaching is the fun part. There's a business side to it. Onboarding an experienced mover is always a lot easier. Okay, because I don't need to spend time teaching them things, which usually needs to be one on one. And therefore I don't have I'm not a very good salesman. I don't like being a salesman. I don't have to convince them to do what I know will be good for them just so that they can join the class and be safe in the class. So from that side, it's easier with an experienced person. But again, flip side of that, with some experienced people, depending on the coach they have, they may have some really bad
Yeah.
habits.
Yeah.
And it is so hard to break an ingrained bad habit. It is
Mhm.
so hard. And then it becomes so frustrating for them because no matter which way you deliver feedback, and it is feedback, it's not criticism, and no matter which way you deliver it in a positive, we're trying to achieve this, and you remind them, hey, you're not doing anything wrong. I just think we can do it better. They know that there's frustration. There's going to be frustration in that, knowing that they could do something better. That's it.
Yeah.
Whereas a beginner, again, assuming you're doing your job right, they have nothing but potentially good habits to learn.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, so I know that it's not as cut and dry. It's just like that's what I
No,
want, but
but that's great.
I,
That's a great
It's
answer.
new.
that's what I
I,
say.
I, everything you're saying, yeah, it's nuanced. And I'm the same way with traditional yoga. We could have somebody come in who's been practicing for 20 years Vinyasa Flow, but we're going to have to start them over in a beginner course because we're going to have to rebuild their practice. And they get frustrated because these habits have been ingrained and we have to totally change their structure, their alignment, everything. And so but it's funny. There was a Soul Cycle documentary series that came out a while ago and I thought it was fascinating. And in one of the episodes, some of the people got upset because some of the instructors were putting the more advanced, experienced students in the front row. And I said, I get that because I teach bar classes live. And when I teach bar classes live, I put my students that have been practicing with me for a long time, I always put them up front because it helps me as a teacher. It helps me when I have people in the front row who have an energy and an alignment that I know is gonna you're because the people behind them are watching them too. And
Yes,
so
and
it
they
helps you
pick
in
it
a
up.
group. Yeah, it does help. And my students know that that's why I'm putting them up front is because I can trust them. They know how to do it. So I can focus on the new people who are also seeing them. And so it's so nuanced. And one thing I wanted to talk about too, Jason, that I don't know if a lot of beginners understand is that physical fitness in a lot of senses is relative. You train for a particular pattern of movement. You look at athletes, someone who's an Olympic swimmer who wins gold medals might not be able to run 3 miles,
Mhm.
I
might
love
not
that.
be
Yeah.
able.
Yeah.
Can we talk? Because I don't think people get that. Like you are training for what you are actually doing. Your body is responding to patterns of movement, and that's not going to be the so I have a good friend who's a Canadian gold medalist ice skater. She's trained it, but when it comes to other things, she's a beginner. So I don't think beginners actually get that you are physical fit as far as activity is relative.
I think the hardest thing with like I agree with you all, and I love this topic. I love talking about this topic. Is what is fitness? Like, how do you
Mhm.
define it? And look, I don't want to harp on because my background is heavily involved, obviously, from a science perspective, and from we can talk about scientific metrics, and then we can also talk about like, because I come from a CrossFit background, the CrossFit thing. But it's so interesting. Like, if you were talk to an average person who, let's just talk about wildly different athletes in the same realm. You would look at Usain Bolt and say he's fit. And you would also, I'm so bad at this, but let's take an ultra marathon runner, don't know anyone, but we just know that there was a crazy world record broken, right? Someone ran a
My brother-in-law is an
3:15.
ultra marathon runner. He
Okay,
places. He runs like
right?
50 miles. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and we are going to say that person is also very fit. Okay.
Mhm.
But if you ask Usain to do what the ultramarathon runner did, and you ask the ultramarathon runner to do what Usain did, would you argue that because they couldn't do that, they were unfit? And then let's go more diverse into an Olympic weightlifter or a strongman. You go, these guys are at the pinnacle of their sport. And so how do you define true fitness? Or do we, and again, this is specificity versus generalization. And what I think this now kind of takes us into is there's fitness for the athlete, and then there's fitness for the individual. And fitness for the athlete involves skewing a holistic approach to health. In fact, I
Hmm.
would almost say any athlete at a high level is borderline unhealthy because
Yeah,
they are
yeah.
deliberately ignoring, well, they might be deliberately ignoring pain for a gold medal, right? They will play and train through injury if the timing requires it. They will deliberately ignore things that they potentially might be better for them for longevity
Mhm.
to achieve a short-term goal.
Yeah.
Whereas the average person shouldn't have that mantra. The average person should be looking at fitness from a holistic point of view, which is, like we said, longevity and functionality. Or if we haven't said that, that's what their goal should be: longevity and functionality, and approaching every little aspect of that. So that's again, they're basically investing in their future. So yeah, very,
It's
very important.
very important. I'm glad you said that because we have a big show here in America, American Sweethearts. It's about the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, which is the most famous. They're dancers. They're not really cheerleaders, they're
My,
dancers.
my partner's
And
watching it right now.
oh, it's fantastic. It's one of my favorite shows because I get the amount of work we do that work too, but they're doing it for a sport. And those girls, their career lasts like 5 years. And most of them, when they're done, have to have like hip surgery because of the jump splits. And I could probably with my training do a jump split if I wanted to, but I don't want to because as you're saying, that's not a holistic approach. I'm not looking to have hip replacement surgery at 45,
No.
right? I'm not an athlete. I'm not competing. I'm trying to put my body together in a way that's going to help me function as Brice in the world, spiritually, mentally, physically. And I'm so glad you pointed that out. And I agree, athletes will work through incredible injuries in order to win. And then after their career is done, I mean, American football players, and this might be true with the rugby world, because I know American football, they have a lot of padding on, but there's a condition now, and I can't remember what it's called. They
CTE,
get their head hit so many times that
CTE.
yeah, it causes mental problems when they're
Yeah.
35. What's the payoff? And so I'm glad, yeah, we're not, and I tell my students that all the time too. Like, you're not, when you come to my class, you're not auditioning for Cirque du Soleil. My teacher in India used to always say, Cirque du Soleil, they do it better. You're just a yoga student, you know? Um, you're not training for Cirque
Yeah.
du Soleil. You're not,
Yeah, and not to disparage the athlete, like
yeah,
they achieve incredible things. Most of them probably don't regret a moment of it, right?
right.
Like I never got to that level, but I've trained with a certain mentality of that, and as much as I know in the future I might carry some niggles that might limit some functionality, I have zero regrets in what I did to achieve that, and I'm glad that it was more of I'm more happy with my commitment to something to achieve something and work hard to it to achieve that than I am maybe the goal of itself in itself. But it has its own downfalls, and I think anyone looking to get into health and fitness needs to really assess their why, right? And that's
100%.
a real big statement because I think from the flip side of that, every coach should really look at to why is this person coming to them, right? Like, do they have a problem that you can fix, or do they have a specific goal that you can fix? Because again, like I said, young Jason was a little bit obstinate and goes, "We should just do this. This is what I know is the best way to do things." And and then Jason now is like, there were better ways. There were other ways. And that person didn't always need all of that. He needed some of that. Um, and if I had kind of spent more time, getting to know the individual, like you said, are they a single mom? Are they this? What life and physical, like not just physical goals, but what kind of life and mental stress goals, sorry, mental stress is placing on them? What are the future actual life goals? It would help me then plan a better program to that individual.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
absolutely agree. I'll share one anecdote about that. Hopefully, this will make sense to people. At the end of second series in the Ashtanga Yoga, we have 7 different headstands that you dismount off. Hands out here. You can't use a wall. We don't use walls. If you're not strong enough for your legs to come up, the wall's going to enable you. That's kind of a rule. In second series, it takes about 10 years to get to second series. And when I first started assisting at AYA, Ashtanga Yoga Atlanta, that's my boyfriend owns. He had a student that would always use the wall at the end of second series, and I would get frustrated. And after class one day, I asked Todd, I was like, "Why do you allow this person to use the wall? She doesn't need it, and that's not what we do in Ashtanga." And he goes, because he's a senior teacher, he goes, "Do you know what she does for a living?" And I said, "No." He goes, "She's the head of the CDC. If she makes a mistake in her job, the world people die. If she needs to use the wall in practice, if she wants that wall there, I'm going to let her use it because her day is so much more stressful than ours. And
Wow.
my job is to support her so that she can function in the world. And I'm not going to put undue anxiety on her in her practice when she has to go to work and not mess up at all." And so
I
you
love
have
that.
to
Yeah.
you have to take it into consideration, don't you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
I
Yeah.
think that's so important because we are all in different, I mean, even just between you and me, Brice, and you as well, Jason, like I don't know that I have the energy and the capacity to work out as much as both of you because I am a single mum. I've got 3 kids, 2 of them are teenagers, so various different challenges, and I basically do everything all by myself. And I love my life. I'm very, very happy. And I wouldn't change anything, but I am now prioritizing and making fitness a much bigger priority in my life because it's actually what really, I mean, obviously Brice and I working together and doing Fusion Body Studio has made exercise important, but also what really motivated me to come and join Jason and start doing some training with him was all this stuff on Instagram that we've been sharing, where there are like 60, 70, 80-year-old people doing these incredible workouts. And I was like, wow, that is my why. That's why I want to do this and strengthen my body is because I want to, as I grow older, I want to be able to get down to the ground and sit down with my grandkids and play with them and pick them up and go up and down stairs easily, you know, all of that. And so that has become a really big why for me. And it's actually really incredible because I have pushed myself to limits with Jason that I have, and with Brice's classes that I've never done before in my life, because in the past my why has been a bikini body. And it just wasn't strong enough. And I was like, oh, I'm tired today. I can't be bothered getting up and doing it. So, and we do say this at Fusion Body Studio. We have talked about the why and how that is just the most important thing, because if you don't know why you're getting up and exercising, it's not a strong enough motivation. And I think that is really, really important. So I love that you brought that up, Jason, as well.
I mean, like that's so I think one thing, as you said this, you've mentioned it a couple of times now, and I'd love to touch on it, is like the concept of bikini body and aesthetics. And I think, look, can anyone achieve it? That's a debatable thing. Obviously, we know there's some genetic factors, but at the same time, is it a necessary thing? Like, it doesn't benefit anyone. Like, to that level, we know that you can be healthy without needing to be that low percentage of body fat.
Yeah.
And the same vein, not to pick on bodybuilders who care about the aesthetics, in the same vein, not everyone needs to back squat twice their body weight or three times their body weight, which is an incredible feat when anyone can achieve that. But no one can argue that a long and functional life is not necessarily, or at least a goal for the majority of people. If not, I'd say some people may not actually want that because you just never know. But for the majority of people, they will want to spend as much of their lives as they can with their loved ones. And they want to be as independent as they want for as long as they can. And that's the functionality side. So it's one of those ones where, like, let's say beginners, it's like, don't just start, right? Like, it doesn't matter what you're going to start. If you want to start running, right? If you want to do this, because at the end of the day, you're a human being. And no matter your age, no matter your sex, no matter what you do for life, we all may differ by degree, but we don't differ by kind, right? So what's good for you is still going to be good for me, which is going to be good for the other person. We just have to adjust accordingly to who they are, where they're at in life. But cardio is good for everyone. Weight training is good for everyone. Flexibility is good for everyone. And if we can just keep picking all those things and go, cool, yep, that's for me. Like, it's all for you. Just find your line, find your level to start.
Yeah.
I love that. I want to hit on something too, Paula, and hopefully, Jason, you agree with me when Paula says she doesn't have it in her to work out as much as like I do or Jason. Paula doesn't have to. Jason and I do this for a living. And so for me, it's important for me to be 10 steps ahead of my students so that I can be a better service to my students. Like, this is what I do for a living. So don't compare yourself to your teacher or your trainer, because this is my job, right? This and researching dead people on YouTube. But, this is my job, right? And so my body has to be a reflection of that. And for me, I don't know about with the personal training, like, there are times I am 5'5", I weigh about 115 pounds. So I am an average size woman, but I'm thinner. But I have to be strong enough to support like a 200-pound man in a back bend. I have to have that level of strength in order to do my job. And so do not compare just because your teacher or your trainer is working out more than you. Don't compare yourself to that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's helpful for people to know. And Jason, I would love to go into, before we, once we start to finish up, but I would love to just go into some of what your ideas are of living a balanced life to kind of help support having a healthy life with exercise in terms of sleep and nutrition and those kind of things. Just any advice you have for our listeners.
I'm laughing because I'm just thinking about, again, the realization that has occurred. Like, we're talking about, light bulb moments before Brice. And I'm not sure if you know, and Paula knows this. I just recently had a child 7 months ago. And that moment has really also affected my viewpoint on my own training. And what I was doing, like I said, I don't regret any goals I set. I don't regret anything I did to get there. But I did realize one afternoon I came back to pick up my son, and I was like, I almost couldn't. And I was just like, was that worth it? Like, And what am I doing now that's going to affect my ability to play with him when he's older, when he's a teenager and still wants to be physical? Am I going to be able to do that because we have limited stores of our body, right? Cartilage is a worn out thing. Um, uh, am I going to be able to do things with him later, or am I trading that off for doing completely arbitrary things that don't matter, that won't affect the world right now? So, and it's just such a funny, like, little thought that popped into my head because if you ask Jason, young Jason, teenager Jason, early 20s Jason, and it was like, we were invincible. Um, Probably wasn't sleeping enough, probably wasn't eating enough, probably or eating well and drinking too much, let's be fair. Training great. We think we're invincible, and I do reflect back and go, what if I hadn't done that? Because I am 37 now. I've just had a kid. I've adjusted. He is probably the one to thank for managing my nutrition a little bit more. His sleeping patterns have forced me to reflect on my sleeping patterns a lot more and made me realize I cannot get away without taking care of myself. So I'm actually sleeping better now because of him. And at my oldest I've ever been, I've hit some lifetime PRs that I didn't really think were going to be attainable again because I believe, again, I'm eating better, sleeping better. And you talk about balance. I kind of look at these things as obviously, like, if we look at health from different angles, these are like other ways. And, we can talk about spiritual health too, not my area of expertise, but I look at sleep and food as like the two biggest things that people could do to recover that people aren't doing. Um, so I kind of want to divert into two areas here. One being exercise and fitness is all good and well, but we do it for the opportunity to recover, right? So we exercise for the opportunity to recover because when we exercise, we stress the heart and lungs, or we stress the musculature so that they grow stronger, or we stress the bones so they increase in density so we don't have bone breaks. But that can only happen when the body has the building blocks to do so. So that's your nutrition, right? And putting bad stuff in your body inhibits that. So that, again, nutrition important. And then it all occurs while you're sleeping. All occurs while you're sleeping. So if you are not sleeping, it is like asking someone to come build a house with not enough bricks, right? So eating bad, not enough bricks or poor quality bricks, and then asking the laborers to come out for only 4 hours and try to build a house in 4 hours instead of the 8 hours you should be getting, or 7 to 8 hours you should be getting. Right? It's that simple. Your house would take forever to build.
Yeah.
And it might not even be a great house by the end of it. So that's that side of, like, I go, so important to the balance of your health. And on that note, it's kind of like stop chasing those little 1%ers that don't matter as much. Like, I've got so many people that are, I'm going to go sauna, and then they have the worst diet. Like, sauna, ice bath, I'm going to go get a massage. I'm going to do all these things that are like shiny and fun and maybe make up point something percent of the day. But sleeping is a third of your day, and the amount of time that we eat as well compared to exercise. You'll eat 3 meals a day or you'll spend more time eating than you will actually exercising, right? That's a safe bet. So it's like, why are we so fixated on something that has a small percentage and effect on you, which you can, again, have a really good effective effect with minimal time, and not spend more time on two very easy things that have a great outcome on your body.
I agree 100%. I always tell my students the workout is not where you're healing. That's where your body's going through destruction.
Yep.
It's afterwards where the integration happens. When the body starts to repair, that's when the healing is happening, and that has to be supported. And I think people, I would argue with you though, Jason. I think you actually do know a lot more about spirituality than you think you do. Because a lot of people in today's world are very confused about spirituality, but all of the old Vedic text, everything, the basis of spirituality is exercise because it puts you in your body. You're in your body, and that's the spiritual experience we're having right now. We're a spirit having a human experience, and that body is the main instrument of going through everything that the body goes through, the mind goes through, the nervous system goes through, the breath goes through, because the breath is connected to the nervous system. That is all part of the spiritual experience. So I would say that you're probably more spiritual than most people are because you're human.
I do like to say to people I meditate more than them. And they kind of go,
Yes,
oh,
you
you
do.
actually, yeah, because and they go, what do you mean? Like, because people were like, do you meditate? I was like, every day for this many, like, and they're like, what? It's like exercise to me is meditation, and I explain,
100%.
and I tell them this, and other people love this, like, because oh, well, they think I'm crazy, but I went, it makes sense when you hear it out. I don't listen to music when I train, or I don't always listen to music. I couldn't care what's on. I'm like, you want to listen to music, put it on. I'm not, I don't hear it. And I don't hear it because I'm so fixated, right? We talk about minimum effective dose. I'm trying to take that on for myself as well, right? But that means I need to do it with the highest intent and purpose.
Hmm.
So when you look at a basic definition of meditation, which is the hyper focus of a simple task to take your mind off everything else,
Yeah.
I am so hyper focused on what I'm doing at that time that it clears my mind from everything else. And so by argument, I'm meditating and I'm meditating
I
for whatever amount of time.
That is exactly what the Yoga Sutras say. You guys, I don't do seated meditation. My teachers they never wanted us doing seated meditation. Why? Because the mind is too active. Meditation is a one single focused mind, is getting the mind to be focused. And you're right. And in traditional yoga, we don't listen. I put music on Fusion Body Studio, especially for bar classes, because we have to have the beat. But in traditional yoga, we don't play music because it's examining the mind, getting the mind to focus. You mentioned skate. My boyfriend was a skateboarder too. To me, sports like skateboarding is so meditative because you have to be focused. And that focus is bringing that mind to that one single point of meditation that brings you in the here now moment. And that's where God is present. And I am so glad you said this, Jason, because this is the biggest confusion people have in the world today. My teacher in India never would allow us to do seated meditation ever. Your meditation happens in your physical exercise. And you can see that. And I say, Jason, like in the Mysore room where we practice, the biggest difference I would say between a more experienced student and a beginner is besides the physicality, is their mind. The more experienced student is able to handle, you don't see as much reaction on their face when things are hard because they get into that state of meditation and they know it's a mental focus, whereas the beginner might react a little bit more to the master, the mind is a terrible master. And so that's the biggest difference, is that active. The second sutra of the Yoga Sutras is Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha, which means yoga is the chittam, the mind, vritti, thoughts, nirodha, so it's ceasing thought. And we can't cease thought, so what do? We focus the mind into one pointed thought. And I always tell students, like, again, my brother-in-law is an ultra marathon runner. I was like, people don't run marathons for health. You don't need to run 26.2 miles. You can run 2 miles for health. There's something else that's happening. There's something else that's happening. And to me, that is deeply spiritual. Whether the marathon runner knows it or not, there's something else going on in that moment that is connecting them to this meditation, that brings them to that one point of focus. So yes, I was so excited when you were saying that. I kept looking at Paul. I was like, this is what I've been saying. This is exactly what I've been saying. And look how calm you are. You can see that with people who have you're grounded, you're in your body, you're calm, and that is because you've had that time to have that here now moment with yourself, whether that's for 30 minutes in the gym or 2 hour run, whatever it is, where the mind has a one point. It's the runner's high, right? That's what a runner's high is. It's an active meditation.
Mhm. Yeah, and I've felt that too because with sometimes with other exercises, it's very easy for me. I've got such an ADD brain and I'm thinking about this and thinking about that. But when I'm in the gym with you, Jason, I am so focused on what I'm doing because, well, number one, I know you're watching me, so I'm like, I don't want to stop it up. But I'm very focused on, I'm trying really hard to do things correctly because I want to build a strong foundation. I want to make sure I'm doing the movements correctly, so that I'm strengthening my body in the right way. And like I'm still obviously working on the squats a bit and stuff like that, and trying to lift my toes up and stuff like that. So you're so focused on what you're doing, and that is spirituality, and that's meditation. And we're taught that spirituality is being like a monk, or doing going and doing crazy things or sitting with a crystal or something, but that's not actually what real spirituality is. It is simply just being focused in the present moment and doing movement, moving your body and grounding your body into the earth, because that's what we're here for. Like you say, Brice, we're here to have a human experience. So yeah,
Yeah, it's
love
in the
that. How you
spirituality is in the
doing?
gym with it's in the gym with Jason. It's sitting in the
Yep.
carpool line to pick your kids up. It's just being totally invested into the experience of having you're an immortal soul that's living in a mortal body. That dichotomy, and that dichotomy is hard because you have a mortal body, it's subject to change and it's subject to fluctuation. It's that challenges the mind. And when that mind is challenged, it creates friction, and that friction is what creates the light of awareness. And that and I would say, Jason, I don't know people who, when they've struggled through, I feel like where people struggle the most in their physical body, that's usually where the most wisdom is gained.
Mhm.
Is because that's where there's the most interesting perspective. Like in yoga, backbending was always a big struggle for me. I've had back surgery, and I even punched a teacher once coming out of a deep back bend years ago. I came out and just smacked him because he pulled me, and that was just my reaction. The only person I've ever smacked in my life. Um, but because that was such an emotional challenge for me, it's just a shape, right? You're just making a shape with your body. I really invested a lot of time and energy studying backbending and what's happening in the physical body, what's happening in the chakras and the emotional body. And now I'm probably one of the better backbending teachers in Atlanta, Georgia, because that was my weeks. I can do forward foldings and put my leg behind my head all day. The hips were never a problem for me. Some people, hips are a problem. They have that same emotional reaction. My issues, my karma was in backbending. And so I feel like what people also need to understand is where you're feeling that friction, where you're feeling that level of discomfort, not pain, but discomfort. That's where it's interesting. And that's where the wisdom is, and that's where the friction is. And that's where you learn the most about yourself. And that discomfort, I say this to the new students all the time. It's not supposed to be like comfortable. Like exercise is supposed to challenge your mind. Pain is different. We don't want pain. But being a little uncomfortable, that's where things change, and that's where you can shift patterning, and that sweat comes, and that purification, that ring of the nataraj, the ring of fire comes in to burn off the karma, to burn off that which is not serving you, the patterns that aren't serving you, to strengthen that which is serving you. And so, you talked about all the, and I think of that, all the ways you were younger, and you say you don't regret that. It's because you learned from it, right? You gain wisdom from that experience. And that's what I want people to understand is where you struggle the most, that's where there's the most wisdom to be gained.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whether that's through yoga or running or whatever.
That's it.
Usually what triggers you the most is where you need to
I'm
be.
gonna go turn my light on. I can just see how dark I'm getting. I'm gonna go turn my light on. I'll be right back.
Yes. I love this, Paula. He knows more about spirituality than most.
Yeah, I know.
We always say that like the ashrams, the monks, that's kind of taken the spiritual bypassing, like because you're not engaging in like the world, you're not engaging that, it's kind of spiritually bypassing,
Yeah,
you know.
it is.
So
Absolutely.
yeah. I mean, I don't know if you would agree with that, Jason, but like all the struggles, the places where things are really hard is usually where the most growth is available to happen.
I agree. Like, I mean, the term stimulus for adaptation applies to everything, right? Like, if if it doesn't challenge you to kind of think about what you're doing or create some adversity, you're not going to come out stronger. And I think the other thing we haven't really talked about, which I think is really cool about all of this, like you said, is the weakness making stronger, is it's not just the physical strength, it's the mental strength, the
Mhm.
resilience that you build from it. If you can get through some of these hardest physical challenges, you will probably be able to get over a fair amount of emotional challenge too.
Yeah.
Because it's coping mechanisms, right? I'm not going to say it'll fix everything, but I mean, the sports science in me is going to come out now. Like the evidence shows that exercise can help with almost everything. I'm not like it can't cure cancer, but it can still help improve quality of life. Can it help with mental disease? Yes, it can. It might not fix the problem, but it will help manage the problem.
Yeah.
And so, like, whether you look at it as exercise as medicine or whether you look at it as a means of creating joy or functionality, it is a pretty good one-stop shop for most things in life.
Mhm.
And it's almost a shame that more people don't realize that or use it in some form because they're missing out. They're missing out on such a cheap and accessible thing. Like you don't have to go to a PT, you don't have to go do yoga. Like you said, you can go run, you can do calisthenics, which is body weight movements. And these days, a gym membership, right, is $10 a week, or you can go to most cheap stores now and get some weights. Then again, minimum effective dose. Do something that you know you need for your life. Most people aren't going to be picking up a car or deadlifting. Like I always say this to the guys at the gym. They're like, "Oh, my deadlift's going down. I'm getting a little older." I was like, "Cool. When was the last time you picked up something over 80 kilos?"
Yeah.
Right. When? So if you are at least maintaining enough muscle mass and minimizing the decline, you are probably still going to be more functional. And then I also say to them, it's like in your office right now or in whatever cohort that you want to look at, how many people can do what you can do? So you're already in the top 1%, right? You're already top of your demographic for who's going to be able to do more things when they're older.
Mm-hmm.
My one time I was stressing about some part of the practice, you know, Ashtanga can be kind of contortionist and the mobility is really extreme in traditional yoga. And I was stressed about a posture and I can't even remember what posture it was. And I was in India at the time. And one of my best friends, he's a movement specialist up in Canada, he looks at me, he goes, Brice, go to any Starbucks and look around that room. Most of those people can't even touch their toes. And when he said that, it put it into perspective, right? Like you're worried about getting your leg further down your back. Like most of these people can't even touch their toes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like it is that like we're not going to go deadlift a car. We're not going to go like, you know, pick a, you know, and listen, when mothers have had to pick cars up their children, mothers who have no gym experience all of a sudden are able that's just the beauty of the human. They're able to lift a Mack truck off their child, you know? And it is. I always think I don't have children, but I don't want my nieces and nephews to have to help me go to the bathroom when I'm in my 80s.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to remain dignified until the end. Right. And feel better too. That's kind of it as well. Like you feel better when you're in a healthy place, when your body's functioning in a healthy way, your quality of life is better because you feel better.
And also I love that you brought up, Jason, about how it's improving all areas of your life and your emotional resilience and what you can deal with in life as well. And one thing I love to refer to is I've read a few books about runners and just how much your whole life changes when you start like say you commit to becoming a runner and you're running on a daily basis. And as you're achieving more, you just naturally start to achieve more in your life. You just start to be more organized. You start to just naturally want to eat healthier. You start to achieve more during your day because you started off your morning by doing some form of exercise and you've achieved that. And then it's kind of like, once you've kind of achieved that, what you've achieved in the gym or at home or running or whatever, it's kind of like anything can feel quite easy after that.
Well, it's funny.
It's a feed forward cycle, right? Like it's good vibes always like that's why people like being around happy people. Like good vibes will rub off on other things. Good habits will kind of feed forward. I think I saw it's an old video now, but like there was an admiral in the US that was talking about why it's so important to just make your bed. It's like it's one thing that's done. Like, hey, you started off doing a positive thing, and now it's just like just keep it rolling.
And I wanted to say too, you brought up a good point, Paula, and we did talk a little bit about nutrition. And I wanted to ask Jason, because we talked a bit about fueling the body. For me, I typically suggest people start exercising first because naturally nutrition kind of you start to the subtle body responses, like people start to realize like certain foods, like I don't respond well to sugar, or man, when I have this particular food at night, I struggle the next day, like I feel sluggish, and they start to naturally notice things about their nutrition that maybe they didn't notice before. And so it becomes a natural evolution of changing the diet slowly versus like cold turkey, where it then kind of forces people, you know, when people want to go vegetarian, I'm vegetarian, I never suggest going vegetarian cold turkey, no pun intended. I always suggest like take red meat out first, go 6 months, then remove, you know, make it slow so that the body can adapt and your mind can adapt and it's not a shock to the system. And so how do you handle that, Jason,
I
with
mean,
people?
that's so funny because like you're essentially saying the same thing, but just from a different, like I guess, not sell point, but perspective. I agree with everything you said. Like it will naturally beget an evolution of understanding to you'll just start noticing, like, I feel good. Like, do I need that extra beer? Do I need that extra, like, no one's saying don't have a chocolate, don't have candy,
Yeah.
but do I need 5 pieces when I can have one? Right. I guess my perspective on that, which is, I think, I'm not sure if we had this conversation, Paula, but I have it with every new person that's like, I want to lose weight. I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. I was like, okay, that's a lot of stuff that you want to do. And I love it. Like, I'm here for it. But let's be real. When was the last time anyone tried to do a whole bunch of major things in their life and succeeded at all of it and stuck with all of it? So I look at it as in the same way that I go specific coaching to specific outcome for, say, let's say squatting. It's like a person can think of one thing and do one thing at a time. Tell them the most important thing. So I apply that same approach from a minor to major perspective. And I start with exercise purely because that's where I feel most confident. If someone wanted to do nutrition first, I'd say, fine, come back to me when you've dialed in your nutrition. But you've got to go do one thing at a time. Otherwise, it's overwhelming. It is a shock to the system. You'll end up beating yourself up, and then will end up probably worse off than before. And you having a bad relationship now with nutrition and exercise. Whereas
And yourself.
if you can succeed one thing at a time, it's so much easier for the dominoes to fall.
Mm-hmm. And
Absolutely.
also you
Yeah.
can be hard on yourself if you put too much pressure on yourself and expecting yourself to stick to so many unrealistic things all at once, then you can just be hating on yourself and thinking, oh, I can't do this, why can't I succeed, or whatever. Whereas if you just pick one thing and focus on that and get that under wraps, and then, I mean, I personally feel probably exercise is probably a better thing to start with, because you're moving your body, you're increasing your endorphins and the serotonin being produced in your brain, and then you kind of naturally just start to feel, okay, yeah, I feel like eating healthier now because I'm moving my body, and it just kind of is more of a natural progression. Whereas in the past, I would have always started with my diet first and then worried about exercise later. But just because of what I've kind of gone through and experienced of myself, I now feel that for me, exercise is probably a better way to go, and then to work on my eating if I needed to.
I think I don't know if that's necessarily true or not, because we know how important it is to fuel the body, and how much it can have an effect. From again, I don't want to say you're wrong, because that was your journey, and so that is correct for you. So I guess the way I perceive that is, I think exercise is easier to start with, and it is, like I said, when we look at a percentage of what you have to do, that's one time of your day to do, whereas you to think about, as opposed to meal times is 3 times a day. I guess the way I look at nutrition, though, is it's so complex, and so where we talk about exercise being differ by degree but not kind. Most people can do the same thing and get a good outcome for it, for health and longevity. Nutrition is a little more nuanced and individualized. And I think that's why it becomes so challenging to the individual. People have different tolerances. People have different, even like ethnic background creates different. Like, I just got back from visiting my grandmother in Malaysia, and oh my God, I forgot how oily the food is and how high carb, low protein, low veg it is. And I went, as much of it as I missed it and I loved it, I'm like, that's not a sustainable, healthier outcome. And so, yeah, I'm not going to say that one's better than the other, but definitely exercise is easier to start, and probably requires less help. I've learned that as an individual, when people come to me with nutrition, I've learned to know my roles, my limitations. In the same way that I'm not a physiotherapist, I can't diagnose and fix things. I can provide guidance, and I will do. But if it gets to the point where a person really wants nuanced help, I will refer them to a nutritionist or dietitian, because it is harder. And it actually will probably, for I guess what I'm thinking about the clients I deal with who do care about, say, aesthetics, because there's nothing wrong with wanting to look good. You look good, you feel good. A lot of that does come down to nutrition. Like, you cannot outtrain a bad diet. You cannot. And I know that myself, because I trained like a maniac, and I knew what I was eating, and I had a very different body type then than I do now, having tidied up my diet, training less, but training smarter and eating better, sleeping better.
I love you say that. We, of course, we have on the, I'm not, and that's something I was going to ask you. There are limitations to every professional. For us in the Ashtanga yoga world, we deal with a lot of people with like trauma, but we always, their limits, we have business cards to therapists, right? Like we know when it's something that needs to be handed over to like a therapist, if something very traumatic is coming up for a person and they need to talk therapy, there's limits to what we can do. And we are not nutritionists either. However, we are trained in Ayurvedic medicine. And we do have, for those, if you go to Fusion Body Studio, I love what Jason is saying. Food is also relative too. And we know that from Ayurvedic studies, from the dosha system, that like for me as a dominant Vata dosha, a raw apple is going to send my stomach and my immune system into haywire because Vatas can't handle raw foods. We crave raw foods, but we can't handle it. So like I need a cooked apple. And so that helped me a lot when I my first trip to India, when I sat down with an Ayurvedic, I had already knew about the dosha system, but when I actually sat down with an Ayurvedic doctor and really went through my diagnosis, my dosha, I started realizing mistakes I was making in my diet, but I thought they were healthy because I had been told in the Western world that an apple is good for everyone, that a carrot is good for everyone. I didn't realize that there were different dispositions, just like there are different races, different whatever, different, some people, and that's what Ayurveda recognizes, that some people are gonna have a Vata disposition, some people are going to be dominant Pitta, some people are going to be dominant Kapha, and that's going to change the way your biochemistry and breaks down food and fuel. And when I started changing my diet to eat for my disposition, my arthritis cleared up, my energy levels were better, I was not having as many digestion issues. And so it is super nuanced. It is super nuanced, just like exercise. It is super nuanced to the individual. And I've noticed, Paula, I don't know, a lot of our students have never heard of the dosha system. And when
Mm.
they started looking at the manual that we offer, it's kind of, and we're not telling you, I can't when I have a student come in, I can kind of read what their dosha is just from my training, and that helps me know how to like, so if I have someone who's Vata, dominantly Vata like me, I'm not going to yell at them like I would someone who is Kapha. Kapha people can take harder teaching. Vata people are more prone to anxiety. So I'm going to teach them differently. And so this informs, because I'm sure, Jason, you've experienced that with some people, you have to be a little bit more gentle with in order to get them to progress. Whereas some people actually want to be yelled at and want and need that. And it's just the different dispositions of people that they have in their, from their inherited karma, from their own life experiences. And so you guys, that is so important. And again, I can't diagnose people, but we do have a workbook on Fusion Body Studio that you can read. And I always tell people, like, sometimes you don't even need an Ayurvedic doctor. You can just write down what you eat, and then 45 minutes later, log how you're feeling, even how your mood is. Do you feel depressed? Do you feel, and you can start to understand like what foods are actually working for you and what foods are working against you. And so many times people think the food pyramid, in my opinion, was the worst thing to ever be created.
Yeah.
It's just so generalized, and it's like raw apples. And I think, Paula, you said one of your daughters has an aversion to, like, she gets stomach aches and she's
Yeah.
very Vata. I'm like, it's because she's Vata. Cook the apple. Do applesauce for her, because then it's going to change that disposition and her body's going to be able to digest it. And I think too, and I think that's the thing Paula was saying with exercise is easier. I think because exercise in our modern society, because we're so blessed compared to like collectively our ancestors. Like we don't have to walk to a well and get water. We don't have to go chop logs for fire, right? We just turn the heater on. Like we don't have to we have a car we can drive to get places. But I think we've lost that connection to our subtle body. And
Mhm.
I think our ancestors were very connected to their subtle body. Even with oils, you're talking about Malaysia, Jason, like even oil, some oils will affect, I know for me, certain oils affect me differently, cooking oils than other oils do. And it's because of disposition. And once, yeah, anyway, I didn't mean to go off on a tangent there,
No, no,
but
it's
it's so
good.
important. It's so important to figure out like what diet works for me might not work for you,
Mhm. Yeah.
just
Yeah.
like exercise. Yeah.
Right.
So
Cool. All right. Well, I think we might finish off there because we've been just over an hour. But yeah,
That flew. That flew. I was like an hour? Like, are we gonna? Do I have enough? Do I have enough opinions and things and information about stuff to talk for an hour? But I was like, oh my God, it's an hour 15.
Yeah,
I could talk to you forever. This is one of my favorite. I'm such a nerd when it comes to this stuff because the human body is truly amazing. Like whatever you've been through in your life, and I will say too, when I work with women a lot who are struggling in an exercise, and especially if I know they've had a child, I always say to them, "Girl, you've done way harder things than this before. You pushed a human out of your body. This is nothing."
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So, I can we ask Paula, and I don't know if you'll be up for this, Jason, but I would love to do a follow-up show with you and see if our audience has any questions for you.
For sure.
Would you
Love
be
to.
up for that?
Yep. Would look definitely.
Where can they find you, Jason? So we have some Australians, a lot of Australians on our platform. So if somebody's in the Perth area, where can they find you? Do you have social media? Do you have
But
like
social media, my handle is movement hub underscore OC. I'm gonna have to confirm that. I'm terrible with my social media. But I do have a website which is movementhubperth.com. Very accessible through there. A lot of information. I'd love anyone to pop down and come try us out. Let's say anyone that reaches out from watching this cast can have a free week trial.
Awesome.
So, just come down, see what we're about, or just come have a chat if you're interested. I've got great coaches that care a lot and, like me, have gone through an athletic journey and realizing that we can have a more positive effect on individuals from a health perspective than from an athletic perspective. That doesn't mean we don't still work with athletes, but we derive just as much joy working with the single mum and dad trying to still play with his kids as much as we do as someone trying to make it to a high level weightlifting or some form of athletic goal.
100. Well, we will have all your links down in the description box below as well for people. And I can't wait, you guys. I love it. That's the point of Fusion Body Studio. I don't want to be the only voice. I get tired of hearing myself talk sometimes. And I think when people are, Jason and I are literally like saying the same things, but just in different languages.
Yeah.
And I think that, what's going to work, and people hear things differently from different people. And all exercise is valuable. It's all valuable. It's all spiritual. It's all mental. It's all good for you. You just find what works for you. And that's one thing we want to do at Fusion Body Studio is be open to all different disciplines to help serve communities in the best way we can so that we are taking our sovereignty back. We are taking our health back. We are grounded in our body. And so I thank you, Jason, for being a service to being service to others and to helping people and coming on and talking to us about this. I can't wait to see our questions from our studio members and get you back on.
Look forward to it. Thanks for having me on. It's really nice. It actually has been super fun chatting. So I can't wait. I look forward to it.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much, Jason. And thank
you. You're very welcome. And I'll see you next week, Paula.
Yes, I will. I will see you then.
All right. Have a good night. Oh, have a good morning, Brice.
Yes. Bye, everybody.
See ya.